My name is Jenna Swann. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Southwest Virginia. In the fall of 2000, I won the McGlothlin Award, which helped me travel to Nepal and India with my companion, Jane Siegel. We worked as a team for 3 months, visiting remote villages, interviewing shopkeepers, artists, teachers, and school children. This is the story of our final month, from December 2000 to January 2001, when we lived in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal. Artists have tried repeatedly to encapsulate all the sites and villages within the valley into a single canvas whose form is called a pilgrimage painting, but life in this valley cannot be condensed. The compassionate eyes on the temples of the valley look out to the 4 directions. From their perspective, all human beings are equal. Rich, poor, young, old, any race, any accomplishments or faults. You are just another human being facing the same challenges as every other human being, to remove the clouds from your own mind so that you yourself see with compassionate eyes. The pilgrims who come to these temples always walk in a clockwise direction, the way the planets revolve around the sun, because in this way you move with respect around the Buddha's core teachings. In this crowded valley are pagodas, one of Mother Teresa's hospitals for the poor, and thousands of shrines and bells. Bells everywhere. Within pedestrians' reach, bells to ring even if you are busily walking by. This is an old habit in the valley, a way to wake the noble qualities dormant in your heart. In the city, in the midst of teeming life, is the inescapable and very public fact of death, not hidden away. Mourning women, wrapped in white, slice quietly towards the river. They join the weeping of a dutiful son, the crackling of a purifying fire, the river cleaners who pan for the gold fillings from the teeth of the deceased. These are the casual sounds and sights that can shock a Westerner used to different social partitions. But here, a funeral is the opportunity for a child to participate in a parent's liberation. The soul of the deceased, which is thought to be reluctant to leave, is offered incense, water, and food, so that it does not hunger or thirst or otherwise feel troubled on its journey towards some new form. The oldest son walks around the body and lights a small piece of camphor in the mouth, whose hot flame ensures the bursting of the skull, which is thought to guarantee the complete emancipation of the soul. The fire burns for about 6 hours, and at any given time there is always at least one smoldering pyre. Near the cremation site live many of the valley sadhus, people who have come to the last stage of their lives, some of them quite old, some of them young. They have made a decision to spend the rest of their lives in prayer, to give up all their worldly possessions and attachments, and depend upon the alms of passers-by. They practice an ancient form of meditation and yoga, whose benefits are concentration and purification. They smear their faces and bodies with gray cremation ash, covering themselves with the knowledge of the brevity of this life. These sadhus are, to some, merely a tourist attraction, but to others, they are brave individuals who have made an incredible and difficult commitment. Just beyond the cremation ghats and the retiring sadhus, from high on a hill overlooking Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, you can see that the valley below bustles with life. The hilltop site of Swayambhunath overlooks the city. Swayambhu is an ancient sacred Buddhist temple, nicknamed the Monkey Temple, which is approached by climbing a steep staircase, weaving through the raucous packs of rhesus monkeys for whom the stairs and handrails are irresistible gymnasium equipment. At the top of the stairs is an old reliquary, and there are more prayer wheels to turn, adding momentum to the wish that all living creatures suffer less and learn to be compassionate about each other's burdens and sadnesses. From the top, you can almost see to the edges of the valley, completely ringed by the snowy Himalayas. This fertile valley has been a melting pot for thousands of years, where traders and pilgrims and priests have exchanged wool and salts and silk and languages and religions from Burma, Bhutan, Tibet, India, and Eastern Europe, and where agriculture has not yet vanished from the urban imagination. The area at the top of Swayambhunath is itself a cluster of multiple shrines, Hindu and Buddhist, like a honeycomb of various cultures with 1,000 images, before any of which a tired pilgrim might stop and take comfort. In this charmed valley, you sometimes wonder whether anything is ordinary. Traffic is not limited to the noisy mopeds. Among them, you may find a complacently parked calf. Transportation trucks may manifest as human porters. And for a quiet, restful form of transportation, you can always opt for a bicycle rickshaw. From inside the rickshaw, you discover that the narrow, bumpy streets of Kathmandu were never meant for motor vehicles. Yet there they are, along with the uniformed children walking to school, the other swerving rickshaws, the shops, the giant bales of who knows what, and the wayside temples protected by their guardian sculptures. Back on foot, you are able to stroll through the market center, but carefully still, because you are in a throng whose members may include a student carrying her English primer, a gardener carrying an armload of daikon radishes to market, or a farmer armed with his produce scales. You must be wary, too, because there are very large drowsy bulls free on the streets who might not be so calm if you were to tumble over them. The markets are grocery stores and department stores turned out of doors where commodities are fresh, hand-picked, hand-weighed, or handmade. Kathmandu cooks buy their ingredients just before they cook each meal, so someone from a family returns to the market 2 or 3 times a day, and it is often the young children or the grandparents who manage the bartering, sitting on burlap next to piles of tiny limes, chilies, ginger root, or dried beans, because the parents are busy in the home or field or factory. Some tourist items are mass-produced, but many of them are created by craftspeople who pass down the skills and traditions of their ancestors. A mass carver replicates an ancient form of a protector's face. He carves it, paints it, and all the while his young son, his casual apprentice, takes in every detail. Outside of Kathmandu and rural villages, there may not be roads built for tourists, but if you are fortunate to find yourself in these remote places, you will still find the artists, the craftspeople, in fact, some of the finest workers of sandalwood, though their shops and villages betray no wealth or recognition. These are the artists who do not sign their work, the unrecognized masters of their craft, part of the silent magic of the valley. In the old villages, the treasures from the fields come in through the back alleys to the central square, where men and women and children and grandparents simply sit and work. A housewife is also a weaver of rice straw, and her durable braided mats are used for rugs, walls, or roofs. There, young children observe and play, and before long join their parents. Alley after alley, each common area is filled with people busy with chores, removing the chaff from rice, pounding it into flour using handmade mortar and pestle, removing corn from its cob, protecting their grains from roaming animals while drying beans, herbs, and fruits in the sunshine, and washing their clothes and dishes and children at the community well. The land is intensively used, terraced, farmed to its edges, and utilized for every mouthful it can yield. On one hillside is Sakyatarig, one of its many Tibetan monasteries where the community in exile studies, educates its children, and lives freely as it cannot in Tibet. The Tibetan refugees have often been called the world's most successful exiles, perpetuating their culture and art, such as their intensely ornamented, symbolic buildings outside of which are strung thousands of hand-printed prayer flags. Tibetans believe that when the wind passes through the gauzy prayers, the benevolent wishes printed on them spread outward in all directions, just as the giant prayer wheel begins an endless spiral of good intentions, just as the radiating concentric sound of bronze bells moves outward like ripples on the surface of a pond, clearing away your mind's distractions or confusions. The monastery is also an orphanage, a dormitory, a cafeteria, a library, and a school where young monks and nuns can grow up and be educated. In the distance, the terraced land rises again, and if you climb to the rim of the valley, you can watch the sun rise over Chomolungma, better known to us as Mount Everest. Tourists explore the city of Kathmandu, but in the villages along the rim of the valley, on the foothills of the Himalayas, visitors are few, and time has not caught up to this century. Feet build roads. Animals supply milk. Farmhouse walls speak of the labor of hand-packed rice chaff and mud. Clothes dry on handmade fences or haystacks. Children shepherd wayward goats. During the day's walk back from this high mountain village of Nagarko to Kathmandu, you may find yourself on footpaths, following friendly farmers who offer to lead you the next mile or so through complicated back trails. Or you may meet young English-speaking schoolboys who continue the rest of the 4-hour journey with you, sharing incredible stories of village life and schooling. On this footpath, you meander past earthen houses with gourds and garlic drying on the roof, mushroom hunters stooped over the day's harvest, and young children swinging from the rafters in a hand-woven basket. Women collect bundles of dried corn stalks to help patch a roof, stuff a mattress, or feed a buffalo. We are especially lucky when a friend invites us to his mother's village. Sunil Shahi leads the way to the small village between the rice fields, up a steep path where a young cowherd coaxes his stubborn charge, to the old family farmhouse where generations of his family have grown up and extended families still live together. We are offered water from the modern pump, and with the help of Sunil's translations, we are immediately taken in and made to feel part of the family. The village school looks like no more than a box. but its children are radiant. We are outsiders with strange complexions and no common language. So the children shy from the camera until I think to turn the viewing screen towards them. After school, the children lead us back toward town. Down in the valley, the Hanamani River separates Kathmandu from the village of Bhaktapur, where one bank of the river yields a natural matte black mud. The distinctive black pieces are thrown, sun-dried, and fired at the potter's square. Sometimes a spinning wheel is an old tire rotated with a stick, but no matter how arduous the hand process, hundreds of water pots, cooking pots, and vases are produced daily, with family members assigned to particular jobs in the assembly of the finished wares. Even a seemingly small task, such as denting the moist pot edge with a rupee to ornament each pot's lip with a semicircular design. Aluminum pots are imported from China, but most villagers still prefer the healthful qualities of hand-thrown clay vessels. The potters buy spoiled straw from the farmers, which is fuel for fires in the rustic kilns. Unfortunately, a lot of the pots break during the firing, since there is no real way to gauge the temperature in the kiln. Outside many of the old temples in Bhaktapur, children appreciate the craftsmanship of other clay objects. Terracotta masters make forms for large guardian beasts, which are sometimes recast in stone or bronze. This is just one example of how each craft feeds its cousin crafts in the Kathmandu Valley. Most of the arts in the valley are not as timeless as bronze. Many forms of art in the Kathmandu Valley are temporary, but they, too, are reminders of the ageless impulse to worship through ornament. A bride's hennaed hands may show their fading paisley designs for a month, especially if the artist who applied the designs also pats on lemon juice at just the right stage, when the ground herbal henna paste begins to dry and crumble. A Hindu wedding in the valley is both pragmatic and extravagant. In this arranged marriage, the bride and her female relatives cluster together in one area of the temple courtyard as she receives a jewel to mark the central part in her hair, a sign of her eminent married status. For the time, her sequined veil will obscure her face from the man sitting not far behind her, draped in celebratory marigolds and herbal fertility necklaces, the curious husband-to-be. The marriage space is defined for the day by the temporary string of bamboo and bow leaves and by the cloth canopy marking the sacred altar of the marriage fire pit, into which both families offer rice. As the grains crackle and burn together, the lineages of the bride and groom are unified. Near the fire, prasad is set out, an offering of beautifully arranged foods and flowers, which is given to the priests and the gods so that they will be fed and happy and attentive during the ceremony. The groom's family presents gifts of the finest cloth and gold jewelry they can afford to the bride, who leaves to go change into her new sari and finery for the remainder of the wedding. Meanwhile, the bride's dowry arrives in rickshaws. She comes with a bed, copper pots, suitcase, blankets, and a dresser. Even as the bride returns to the circle, she and the groom have not seen one another's faces. His brothers welcome her to the family by washing her feet, showering them with rice, and by pasting grains of rice to her third eye as a wish for fertility. One of her brother-in-laws-to-be offers her a gift of money and touches his head to her feet as a sign of respect and obedience. She then reciprocates this respect by marking his third eye with cinnabar and paste. The parents must bless the union by pouring water into their daughter's hand, cleaning and preparing it for her new status. This is a very sad moment for the daughter, a transaction, a time when her parents release her. She is literally handed over to her new husband, at first by her thumb alone, which her new husband grasps before he has seen her face. The parents place flowers on this first point of contact, roses and marigolds. Even the marriage scarf is blessed with offerings of rice, as the parents and priests mime the essence of the marriage with a hand gesture. You give, you take. What you plant, that much grows. The marriage scarf binds the couple, tied around her waist and tucked into his pocket, representing a physical, moral, and social unity. Now the groom's father blesses the union with a financial offering, and then the males offer butter and rice to the sacred fire. The ceremony pauses for just an instant, and perhaps the bride contemplates that the same fire which destroys also purifies and cleanses. Then the groom recognizes woman as the eternal symbol of fertility and life, ensconcing her with a blood-red scarf, tracing the length of the scarf with red blessing powder, and marking the red powder at the place of her third eye. She is also offered a red necklace, and, though she is unveiled before the groom, he still averts his gaze. They have not yet looked into each other's eyes. The bride washes the groom's feet, an old custom which means that she takes the dust from the feet of a weary traveler who comes before her. And then, in a quick climax, the bride marks the place of his third eye. They gaze into each other's eyes for the first time in their lives. Her mother welcomes him as a new son by adding to his tika, the blessing mark, and by crowning him with a marigold. The bride's veil is lowered again, and her husband sits quietly beside her. As the ceremony closes, the bride and groom have not yet had the occasion to speak even a single word to one another. Wedding guests are offered chai, sweet tea, and prasad, food that was blessed along with the marriage during the ceremony. Many guests have traveled from distant villages. They may have crossed mountains and rivers by bus or by foot. Their children now relax on straw mats and in the shade of canopies. This day is a culmination of many days of prayer, fasting, and celebration. As her parents look over the friends who have gathered to view the dowry and to enjoy the food under the wedding tents, they may now absorb the shock that they have lost their daughter. A final offering of her family money is folded into a handkerchief and secured on the bride's forehead. Finally, it is time to take the wedding photos. The bride and groom stand together, a newly married couple, complete strangers. This extraordinary Hindu marriage ceremony, which has taken place at a sacred site called Buddhanilkanta, concludes. Eventually, the wedding party will depart for home. On their way out, the guests will make offerings or add color to the partially submerged, enormous statue of Vishnu, the preserver, who sleeps on the bed of a coiled serpent carved 1,400 years ago. At Buddhanilkanta, the ancient sleeping statue of Vishnu may now dream a sweeter dream because of the wedding which has just taken place close to his great stone ear. And as the dreams of Vishnu grow sweeter, the valley grows richer, and who knows what magic may result.